to set the expectation early on that the kids are the scientists. They're the ones leading the way. They're, you're just guiding from the side, asking questions and allowing them to develop those skills as they go, as is the same for most after school programs. It's an informal format, so it's meant to be fun. It's meant to kind of build positive attitudes towards science, so that as they're developing these science skills, they're doing it in a fun way so that it encourages them to want to continue building those skills and participating in fun science activities. So there are no right answers as well. Leap into Science always emphasizes that this is more about skill building than content mastery. So it's not about getting their design right. It's not about memorizing any specific skills. It's about developing a learning process. And a great way to do this is by modeling the core 4 strategies, which Elizabeth is going to give you a review of right now. So take it away, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Moreau-Nicolai, the Youth Services Coordinator for the Anchorage Public Library. So last meeting, we showed you a video about using the Core 4. It's a great video if you didn't see it. It's linked in the leap.fi website that you all have access to when you signed up with this. Lily can also send an email out with it, I think, or was in the email right before this one talking about it. So we're not going to re-show the video showing them, but the core 4 strategies are ask questions, encourage scientific thinking, make connections, and cultivate rich dialogue. Go to the next slide, please. So to review, here are some methods. Ask questions, and there's a difference between an open-ended question that prompts a verbal response more than yes or no, versus a closed-ended question that could be a yes or no, or just a nod or a shake of the head. And definitely, if you can do ones that prompt more words, especially if you're working with children under 5, count to 10 silently, 10 Mississippis in their head, and give the children time to respond. Encouraging scientific thinking, observe what they're doing, observing, predicting, and taking risk. Also, one that's not on here, but if you could encourage them to make a plan. What do you think is going to happen? How are we going to try that? What's our plan? How did your plan work? What do you want to do differently the next time? So planning and results are also a part of that scientific thinking. We're going a little bit fast through this because we covered it last time. Cultivating rich dialogue. I was just finishing up another training for a different part of this whole youth services librarianship thing that was talking about, we talk a lot about the 30 million word gap and how many less words children hear in various family situations. And the amount of words they hear matters, but so does the right, which doesn't mean you need to be fake. You don't need to be like, as you perambulate your limbs to traverse the floor. Like, nobody talks like that. You don't need to say that. Because it took me a really long time to come up with that example, and I have a master's degree, so that's not useful. But adding in those scientific words, instead of saying, what did you see? What did you observe? Instead of what do you think will happen? You can say, what do you predict? And if you need to ask the question twice because they don't know the word predict, say, what do you predict? What do you think will happen? Which gives them that rich vocabulary word and an open-ended question that they can answer and encourages that scientific thinking, all in 2 sentences. And then, of course, make connections because you want them to be a scientist. And so you can, again, looping back to, you observed this, you predicted, made a hypothesis, and then we tested it. That's the same thing scientists did. Is that the same? And so you both connect how that they are feeling and giving them those validation, but also, if possible, if you're doing light and shadow or you're doing wind, it's very windy and cold in Anchorage right now. You can say, oh, was it windy when you came in? Did your hair blow around? Connect to the things that are happening to them outside of this workshop, this building, this day. So how do the strategies work together? So these are some questions to consider. I already sort of talked to you about the 2 questions that we're asking, that we're looping in at least 3 of those strategies together. How are you already using them? And what behaviors should you avoid? I think if you guys want to take a moment and answer any of those 3 questions in the chat, because you all work with kids and already are using versions of these, I'm sure, in your own practices.
I was just going to say one of the ways I think I mean, feel free to everyone answer in the chat if you have any ideas, because I'm sure, oh yeah, here they're coming in now.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, like, the way that they work together, I think is like asking questions is kind of one of the core 4 strategies, because asking questions kind of is a skill that, or like a strategy that you use for all of the other 3. But here, Elizabeth, I'll let you read through the chat here.
Absolutely. So I'm seeing that people are doing the building vocabulary, and then defining the words. So using a new word, but also offering the definition context. Jamie's saying she's asking open questions. Jerry's also asking questions to prompt replies and connections. Joe from Campfire is aligning to experimental awareness, building habits of asking questions based on their world, connecting prior experience and forming this habit of discussion, which I love this idea of making it, and these are coming in too fast for me to read all of them. So I apologize, guys. I'm just going to grab the few that pop up and I see, but that forming a habit of discussion, that this is not necessarily something that happens in the 1 hour of this workshop, but you're modeling a behavior that happens either consistently in your after school practice, or you're hopefully modeling a behavior that are things that parents take home. And I know, I mean, I'm a parent, and I know that like when I'm on the playground, every now and then I will see another parent use something and I will just steal that. And I'll be like, I'm doing that with my kid. I did that last week. I was watching a mom and the way she was interacting. And so every time we just model things for caregivers. I see the strategies work together is because questions encourage critical thinking and making connection. One of the things I'm not seeing are behaviors you should avoid. So last time we really talked a lot about the idea of like guided learning versus instructional learning, and the idea of the sage on the stage. That's one of the things to avoid what we're basically doing right now, where we're sage on the stage, giving you all of the information and you just sort of sit back and observe. That's not the point of a Leap into Science workshop. That's not supported by best practices for childhood learning. So avoiding lecturing them, really, and avoiding the idea that this is the right answer and that a child did something wrong. When you're learning and exploring and doing science, you don't do things wrong. You have an experiment that didn't have the desired result and you get to try again, but you weren't wrong. So it's always a chance to try something new. And I, like Ariana said, let them come to conclusions and don't tell you the answers. Absolutely. I think we can go to the next slide. All right, so we're going to talk about the Wind workshops, which much like the Light and Shadow workshops, there are 3 options. A preschool option, which for ages 3 to 5, with structured activities that you kind of all do as a group. The elementary school one also has structured activities where you do with you as a facilitator and the group moving. And then there's sort of a family, which is the mix of the structured activities, the story time, and then the station-based. So these are the 3 models that were set up in the materials, which you can access on the leap.fi website. You can access through some of the things. The kit you have been sent can do all of it. And it is not, you have to do exactly these things. We really encourage you to look at all of these options. You know your site, your staff, your kids, your community, you know what's going to work for you. Mix and match until you make the stew that is the most delicious in your environment. It's a terrible metaphor. Forget I said that. Next slide. But all workshops do need to follow a sequence like this. Engage the children, start with something that pikes their curiosity, that draws them in and has them want to participate. Reading, read a book together, which we're going to talk about, and which was included. And then the explore is really where you can set it up, or you're all working through stations together in small groups. You have structured activities, or you're doing stations. This is the part where there's a ton of flexibility in how this works. And then hopefully at the end, you get to come back and reflect. And of course, oh yeah, I think this goes to Lily.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Awesome. So now we're going to go through the stages of the Leap into Science activity. So first of all, as Elizabeth said, you're always going to start off by engaging, and this is just introducing the topic. So use your ask question strategy and ask, like, what does it feel like on a windy day? How can you tell it's windy just by looking at out the window? Like, how can you see the wind? Elizabeth gave some examples of this earlier. Also, this is a good time to kind of introduce a few of the tools that you have there, along with the fan. So you can kind of show what the pinwheel looks like on low and high fan settings and ask questions about that. Like, what do you notice about how the pinwheel moves on the different fan settings? And this is kind of setting them up for activities that they'll do later when they're making wind detectors on their own. Another really cool way to get started with the wind activity is inviting children to stand and act like a tree. That you could also do this on a family night with have all their family members do this too. Act like a tree on a calm day, in a light breeze, a strong breeze, and a storm and a hurricane. This gets kids moving, and it's a good way to get everyone engaged and have fun, like, right off the bat. So that's a good way to get started too. One thing you can use during this activity is the Beaufort Scale. And this is all about, cultivating rich dialogue, like Elizabeth introduced earlier. This is a good way to kind of take them through the stages of wind as you're doing that first activity, especially because it breaks all of these words down into things that kids can visualize. The other really cool thing about the Beaufort Scale that I want to point out is that you can pass this out if you want. You have a cardstock copy provided in your kit that you can make copies of. Of course, all of this stuff, we'll keep saying throughout, is available through leap.fi.edu. So you can also just print them out through there if you want to hand them out at your activity. But it's really cool because meteorologists still use it today. So you can say, meteorologists still use this, or if they're younger, you can say scientists use these special words to talk about the wind, depending on the age group, and you guys will know better than me what's appropriate for each age. But yeah, this is a great way to introduce that dialogue early on, and you can use this throughout the activity to talk about the wind as you're doing the activities. So this is a really cool tool. And of course, after you engage, you can all sit down and read together. And Elizabeth, our resident librarian, is going to take you guys through that whole process of active reading.
So the Franklin Institute for these workshops calls this active reading. If you've been in the library science world, you probably are going to call this dialogic reading. There are a couple of books included in your kit. One is Kate Who Tamed the Wind, which the Leap into Science Franklin Institute really intended for school age audience, for those elementary school kids. And The Wind Blew by Pat Hutchins for preschoolers. Again, choose the book that's going to work best for your community. I'm going to tell you a children's librarian secret. You don't have to read a whole book. I have actually even been known to paperclip pages together. So when I go to a story time, I turn the paperclip and I skip whole pages if I want to shorten it and I know it ahead of time. Or I just stop early if it's just not gelling. But yeah, this is really a good time to know what's going to work with your group and your community. I'm going to turn on. So we're going to look at the Kate Who Tamed the Wind today by Liz Garton Scanlon and Lee White. So the man lived all alone in the creaky house on the tip top of a steep hill where a soft wind blew. The man lived all alone in the creaky house where the curtain swung and the chimes spun as a soft wind blew. and blew. Can you guys make and with little kids at this point, I might just start with something simple like, can you make a wind with me? Can we make a gentle wind? And we'll all go gentle together. Older kids, what do you see moving in the wind in this? And then get the kids to name things. Next page. The wind blew, the shutters banged, the boards bent, the table tipped, and the tea spilled. The tea spilled and the bread broke on the tippy table in the creaky house at the tip top of the steep hill. And still the wind blew. You don't, with this, necessarily have to ask questions on every page. You can. I would encourage to do at least half the pages to really encourage into dialogue. And this one, a great question would be, what else happened when the tea spilled? And you can see the bread broke and things like that. Okay. What to do? The wind whipped his words from the tip top of the steep hill to the itty bitty town at the bottom, where a little girl called Kate heard the cry and felt it too. Can we all whisper together? Help. Oh, what if we go a little bit louder? Have you ever whispered in a tunnel and it went farther? Does the wind help carry the words? All right, next one. She wondered what on earth to do. Older kids, hey, what's that say? Wind. Does anyone know what she's playing? Oh, hopscotch. Kate could not stop the wind. She knew. But what is she drawing here? Especially with older kids. What do you see? New trees. Why do you think the new trees might help? Maybe they block the wind. Yeah. So, and again, giving lots of time for kids to answer. She could wheel a load of new trees to the tip top of the dusty hill in her wagon. All right, next page. There, Kate dug deep holes and watered muddy mounds till the trees grew. As the trees grew, the wind blew. Is she doing it by herself? Oh, she's getting help. What else do you see? How quickly do trees grow? Is it quick or slow? Does she look the same or different in those pictures? Oh, she grew up too. She got older in the pictures too, huh? I'm obviously providing the answers very quickly because you're adults in a Zoom session with me. With the kids, give time, wait, let them work through it with you. The trees grew, the wind blew, and the time flew. The time flew as the trees grew and grew. How long do you think how long of time do you think it took for the trees to grow that long? Yeah, probably a couple of years. Yeah, keep going. And Kate did too. How big is she now? She's a grown-up and the trees are grown-ups? Oh my goodness. The trees grew till the leaves fluttered and the shutters stilled and the boards bounced back. Look at the colors of the leaves. What season do you think it is? Fall. Are the leaves staying on the tree or do you think the wind's blowing them? Oh, the wind's already blowing them off. Cool. The birds peeped and the old man poured sweet tea and said, for you, near the quiet house on the tip top of the green hill. So the cake grew and the tree grew. Did the old man change? Oh, his beard turned gray. He's an even older man. Yeah, yeah. And the next one, where a bright breeze blew. Oh, can we go bright, breeze, blue, and then you can do a whole thing about alliteration, or you can talk again about your Beaufort word scales. In this, there's a nice thing about, she had a solution. Did she fix it that day? Oh, it took a while. And there's a good conversation you could have there about how sometimes science comes up with answers, but it takes a really long time for them to be effective. They don't always fix things immediately, like flipping a switch. There's a lot of conversations you could start around this book. And if we go to the next slide, if you don't particularly like these books, you got Kate Who Tamed the Wind and The Wind Blew in your packet. Another book that they suggested is called Gilberto and the Wind, which is available probably at your local library. You can always choose your own books. We do recommend a captivating story, something that is interesting, a clear and an accurate science concept. So here we had the concept of the wind, and they did use words like breeze, as well as the idea of creating a wind block with trees. Relevant ethnicity, culture, and language is another one. What was interesting, if you guys remember, in Light and Shadow, we read the word blackout, which is fantastic. It's a very diverse book, but it does take place in sort of like an urban New York City-esque environment where everyone's big on a street, and that may not be relevant for your community, but maybe the concept of a power outage, it still is. And of course, when you're reading, please keep your pages visible, encourage kids to talk, and be able to see the pictures. Do your best reading with your book pictures to the side, librarian style. Avoid too long, text heavy, too many unfamiliar words. You absolutely adore a book and it is super text heavy. You don't have to read every page every word on a page. You can describe words, but in general, shorter is better because it gives you more time for the fun science activities. Now, next slide, sorry. We also encourage for exploratory books, and these are books that you could read together. You could read them at your end, at your reflect time at the very end. What is a Scientist is included, of course. Ada Twist Scientist is another great one. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, which is, of course, both a picture book. There's a young reader version that's like at a middle school level, and there's an adult version as well. And that, again, your nonfiction picture book section is a great one to either choose these for your reflect time at the end, or if you're doing a station-based thing, consider setting up one of your stations to be related books that families could take a moment and stop and read together or check out to read at home if you're in a library environment. Again, highlighting your diverse communities and focusing on the process of science. And again, another great thing about the book we read just now, it did show the process and the amount of time a solution took in this case. Science is sadly not magic, no wand. So avoid outdated content, avoid text-only books, try to grab things that are visually appealing. There's a lot of really great kids nonfiction books, so it might be time to let go of, please don't shoot me, librarians, Gail Gibbons. Might be let go of some of that. It's a little bit of a deep cut for librarians. Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much, Elizabeth. I just want to say that was a good reading of Kate Who Tamed the Wind, and like Kate Who Tamed the Wind is, I feel like that's a really good book. I personally am a little biased to that one over the older one that we have, but both are really good. I think Leap into Science recommends The Wind Blew for like younger, like preschool age, but honestly, it's completely up to you guys, whichever one you want to use. And as Elizabeth went through, especially you guys who are librarians, you're allowed to use whatever books you want as long as they fit the criteria. And I'm actually in your curriculum packet. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to say, Lily, that MJ from Juneau Public Library made a great comment in the chat that I wanted to highlight. If there is enough time in your program, reading the book once through as a storytelling without the dialogic reading, the interactive reading elements, and then going back and asking the question is fantastic. repetition is great, especially the younger the child, the more repetition. And they are well-written language. As much as I'm like, if you need to skip words, do it. The beauty of picture books is if they have few words, they were every single one carefully crafted and chosen to be beautiful language experiences. So I just wanted to highlight MJ's comment because it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's so true. Yeah, and I'm glad that we got to send you guys all at least one copy of the book, because I feel like Leap into Science did a good job of choosing some good books for you guys to have. So, moving on to the Explore section. So as you guys know, this is where the three formats split off, the elementary, pre-K, and family. I just want to say once, that for the purposes of this presentation, we're taking you through exactly what's outlined in the Leap into Science instructions, which are both in your kit and on leap.fi.edu. But I want to say, it's totally up to you what format you guys want to use for the age group. So you can do structured activities if families are present, or you can do stations even if you just have school age kids there and no families. There's no strict rules about the format that you use. So it's completely up to you guys how you guys want to go about doing these activities. But for this presentation, we're going through what is outlined in the instructions, but no requirement there. So starting with the Wind Elementary Workshop, the first thing you're going to do in the structured form of the activity is introduce a wind test station that they'll use throughout the activity. So you'll have your air cannon there, the fans, the pinwheels, the cups and blocks, and these are actually, I want to point out, these cups and blocks are in your light and shadow kit. You guys already had a really, really nice set of blocks, and it made sense just to have you guys use that nicer set of blocks rather than buying kind of a cheaper kind for you to use this time around. Since you already have them, these are perfect for this activity. So introduce a wind testing station with all of those materials, your windsock as well, and then ask kids to make predictions about how each object will move as you place it in front of the thing that makes the wind, whether it's the air cannon or the fan. One thing I will say about the air cannon, it is collapsed down in the box that it comes in. And I don't know if this was just me, but it took me a minute to assemble this properly. There are like screws you have to use to put it together. So I just want to point that out, that you might want to get that air cannon assembled in advance. Don't wait until the minute of the activity to do that. Just put that together, whenever you get a chance before the activity. Cultivate rich dialogue. Ask kids to describe what they see using the words from the Beaufort Scale, so that they can kind of describe, like, what is the air cannon making? Is it making a breeze or a gale? And what about the fan? A really fun thing about this activity is you can encourage them and challenge them to build a structure with the blocks that can withstand the air cannon. And I think it's a really fun thing for kids to do, to get to build something up and then knock it over with the big air cannon or with the fan. It's a fun and exciting activity, and you can also kind of challenge them to build a structure that will stay upright even when they hit it with the air cannon. So, and you can use cups or blocks for that, whatever you prefer, whatever you have available, or both. And ask questions throughout the activity, like, how do you think the windsock will move in a light breeze? What about a gale? And how does the pinwheel move differently in the low and high fan settings? I think you should have enough pinwheels to hopefully pass out to most kids. If not, you can have them pair up for one pinwheel, but there are enough pinwheels and fans to be able to pass those out to each kid, or to do that part virtually if you can send fans and pinwheels to the homes if we have a few people doing virtual. The next part of the structured activity is the wind detectors, and this is a good way to introduce kind of the engineering design process, or a simplified version of that. So have kids make predictions about what materials will move best in the wind, how they can use the different materials that are available to build a wind detector. For this, they have feathers, the paper bags, the popsicle sticks, They have the chenille stems, I call them pipe cleaners. All those things that are in that white topped bin inside of your larger bin can be used for this. Then challenge kids to design a detector that will move differently in different levels of wind. Of course, it's not about getting their design to work. This is all just about the learning process and following through on the engineering design process. And that's where your wind test station will come in. So you can encourage kids to take their design, build their design, and take it to the wind test station to test out to see if their wind detector moves differently in different speeds of wind. And then, as they're doing that, ask questions about how their design works. Is it working the way you thought? How could you use these materials in order to test for even lighter settings of wind, lighter speeds of wind? And then allow them to, after they test, to redesign and retest. And this is all about building that engineering mindset, learning about the engineering design process, and emphasize that this is how problems are solved in the world of science, is by trying once, testing it out, and trying again. And of course, as you guys know, ask questions all throughout, like what do you notice about how it moves in the high versus the low speed? What do you notice about the pinwheel? How could you make your design work more like the pinwheel, how it moves differently or faster in faster speeds of wind? And of course, use those words from the Beaufort Scale throughout, because emphasize that that's what meteorologists and scientists use, giving that real world connection to science with what the kids are doing. So, all right, the preschool workshop, you're going to do kind of the same thing. You'll still have a wind test station. The kids can still build things and knock it over with the air cannon, play with both the air cannon and the fan and the windsock, and make observations about that. But for 3 to 5, instead of doing the wind detectors, this is a good opportunity to just let them sort of make wind on their own and to see how it moves objects of different weights differently. So you can divide into 2 groups, squeeze bottle station and a fan station. Again, there are enough squeeze bottles and fans to be sent out to kids if you want to do this one virtually. Those objects, there are hopefully enough to be able to do this virtually. And then demonstrate how these tools can be used to make wind, how to use the squeeze bottle, demonstrate that. I'm sure you guys would know how to do that. And then encourage scientific thinking by asking them to sort of predict what will happen when they make wind and try to move different objects like the paper clip or the pom-poms or the feathers that are all in your kit. So they can kind of experiment and see how they move when they make wind. And ask questions all the way through. How could you make this object move further? What would happen if you use the fan instead of the squeeze bottle? Does the fan work better? Which one do you think will move further, the paper clip or the pom-pom? And getting them to make those predictions beforehand and then test it out. That's their way of taking them through the scientific process. And you can of course introduce some words like breeze and gust. Those are simple. And that pre-K kids can understand. So great. So for the family workshop, again, it's totally up to you. If you can use stations if you want for school age, even if you don't have parents present, it just depends on your comfort level, number of kids, and if you have enough help, then doing stations is totally fine, even if you don't have parents present. But it's more self-directed. You guide from the side, and you, of course, you're still going to start with the group reading and end with the reflection. But this part is the family version of the Explorer part. So station 1 is all about basically showing that air is matter. But you don't have to say it like that. If they're younger, you can say air is everywhere. Air is all around us. Or air takes up space. We breathe the air in. So that's and these 3 are all meant to sort of help kids visualize that. Again, if you're doing this virtually, this is easy to demonstrate over Zoom if you wanted to do this virtually, but filling a bag with air to show the air takes up space, holding a bottle under water or an empty bottle under water to make bubbles. This is a cool paper towel trick where the paper towel stays dry if you put the cup down in a flat without tipping it. And you can even ask, like, what happens if you tip the cup? Does the paper towel get wet? Why does the paper towel stay dry when you put the cup face down? So these are all about showing what the air is and helping kids to visualize it. Station 2 is about how air makes things move. This is also a really fun and very active station. One of these activities is to design an air rocket. This is really fun, and it's simple. You just put a smaller straw into a larger straw, and use clay to help them, design an air rocket. This isn't so much about the design process, it's just to show that it's just a fun activity to show that air makes things move, and it can be done virtually. We were able to provide enough materials to do this virtually. Clearly a pre-COVID activity. That is so true. Oh, so true. Probably not.
I was also going to say this might be fun. Like if you are in
That
a
is-
community with a mask mandate where you cannot do this, this might be fun. If you had Ziploc bags where you could put like a little suggestion card, the rockets, the clay, and send it home and say, and extend the learning and encourage kids to do this in their own home as opposed to within your community. If you're still within a mask mandate situation, and even if you're not, if people just kind of get a little bit weirded out about intentionally blowing as hard as they can.
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt,
that is
Lily.
no, that is such a good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. This might just be, for some people it might be kind of a virtually only activity because the boat activity can't be done virtually. So like, especially for now, this does seem like a more like at home activity that kids can do with families, and not around other kids that they can infect. So yeah, I'm glad Elizabeth's here to point that out. And okay, yeah, so this is about, again, station 2, about making things move. The boat activity is actually really fun too, because there's a real world connection there. You can show that air is useful in making things move. It's useful to us as a source of power to get things done, to accomplish tasks. And the boats can really show that. So you can remove one of the sails from the boats, have one boat with a sail, and ask them to predict beforehand, why do you think the boat with the sail is going to move better in the wind versus the one without? So that's a fun activity that can be demonstrated virtually if you want. This station 3 really mirrors kind of what we already talked about. All three of these activities resemble the school age structured activities that we just went through. Setting up a wind testing station and asking them to make predictions and talk about what they see, testing the wind's force by building structures with blocks and cups and knocking them over with your air cannon, and then making the wind detectors using the engineering design process. Whereas likewise, station 4 is more of a young scientist station, and this activity mirrors the pre-K structured activity. So if you want, stations 3 and 4 can run parallel, or you can just not have whichever activities don't work best. Again, it's completely up to you. All of these are just different things that you can choose to add if you want. You should use whichever one works best for your program. What moves, so this is exactly what I was talking about before, just giving younger kids an opportunity to make wind and make predictions as they do that. And then you do also have some cutout leaves provided on cardstock in your kit. You can also print them out from leap.fi.edu to do this activity here. And station 5, final station, is read and reflect. You can have all of your wind books here, any wind book that you like. You can have both of the Wind Blue and Kate Who Tamed the Wind. This is also, if you're doing stations, you can also have your What is a Scientist book here, if you're as one of the stations. If you're having trouble fitting in the reflect portion and you don't think it's going to be possible to bring everyone back together as one group to do the reflection, you can do your reflection as sort of part of a station and have What is a Scientist here and a few pages picked out for parents and kids to read together, or just for kids to read with whatever adult is at the station. So that's a great option for reflection. And then this is, of course, just whatever. This is very there's not a lot of structure or requirement here for the station. It can be whatever the kids want or what you want. Draw, write, write a poem, make a song, whatever they want to do with that. It's space for open creativity. So that's station 5, read and reflect. And I'll pass it over to Elizabeth to talk about Barbara Lynn's What is a Scientist?
So this is, again, one of the books included in your kit. We talked about it as well in a light and shadow thing. And the idea is very much to model that the kids are scientists. They were a scientist today in that they explored, they observed, they made predictions, they did a hypothesis, and then they found out what happened. This is a great book that you can use in that reflection time to talk about it, to ask, how were you a scientist today? What did you do? What did you observe and see? What did, again, starting those conversations. We covered it pretty well in the last meeting, so I won't repeat myself too much. Okay, next one. It is also important if you are in a setting with the families. This is going to be our breakout activity. We're going to talk about how you engage caregivers, and it might be sending home the straw activities. And this is important both if you're in a setting where your families are coming together, like a library, or if you're in an after-school environment where you're working with just the kids. And I have an elementary school age child. When she comes home and I ask, what did you do at school today? And she tells me, I drank from my water bottle. And I was like, that's great. Did you talk to, like, there's no other information provided to me. And so how are you communicating the learning you did to the families in a way that the caregivers can engage and continue some of that at home if you aren't directly having them with you? So we are going to put you in breakout groups for 8 minutes. And these are the questions. What are key struggles with engaging caregivers in their children's learning? And what strategies have you found to be effective? And this is both caregivers together or separate.
Yeah, take it away.
Again, that website, you got the information from Lily when you registered. That's like the leap.fi website. Has a lot of these handouts. This is a great asking questions. If it doesn't naturally come up to you, like what questions to ask, this is a great guided questions for each workshop station. You can provide that whole scale to your parents. You can turn those into cue cards that you put on the tables if you're working within stations. I love the idea of the newsletter. If you're sending a newsletter home, hey, this week, this month, we are doing a light and shadow, a wind. You might ask your child these questions to see what they learned, those sort of things. So ways to prompt them and include them. The guidelines for the workshop do lead all sections of the workshop sequences so that engage them with an activity, read, the explore, which is the stations or the guided activities, and then the reflect. So we do ask that you do all 4 of those using your core 4 strategy, your questions, your dialogue, scientific thinking. Oh my gosh, and of course I'm blanking on that 4th one. Open-ended questions, cultivate rich dialogue, encourage scientific thinking, make connections. There we go. Do all 4 of those. And engage children and caregivers inclusively, especially if you are working in an environment where caregivers are in, to just give instructions to caregivers. Don't give just instructions to children. Hey, we're going to walk and talk to both. So that's sort of the requirements via the grant and Franklin Institution. What's flexible? Everything else. The materials, a lot of stuff's been provided in your kit. If you need other stuff, if you don't use everything, the link, the time, and the location. We were talking to Jerry in my breakout group, and she was talking about the daycare is interested, but not really sure if it's going to work. So she might take a book and an activity over to a daycare and do just two activities and do a very small part of it instead of every single thing that was provided. Time, location, up to you. And if you are in an after school environment and you don't have time, if you want to spread it over the course of a week, it doesn't have to all happen within the exact same 45 minutes. If you're doing an activity a week and it's a week worth of activities, there's no attendance goal where we want you to have 250 people to be successful. No. And If you don't like the read aloud books, switch it up, as long as it sort of still follows that scientific process criteria.
Okay, awesome. So now the fun part. This is all about resources and expectations. We were talking a lot about resources throughout, but now we can kind of go over what the plan is for you guys going forward. We're going to talk about, you know, the connectory and the workshop reports. Those are really the two main things for reporting. And I would say the workshop / activity reports, it's not a training report, it's for the activities that you guys lead at your sites. Those are probably the most important thing, and really it's just a quick survey, but we'll talk all about that. So first of all, Leap into Science site. This is leap.fi.edu. It has everything you need. The curriculum guide is probably the most important thing. You can find this in the curricula tab. I also go over this a little bit more in depth than in the last training, so you can watch the recording if you're lost on any of this, the leap.fi.edu stuff. There's videos, a handbook, flyers for promotion if you want. They have those all already set up, and the graphics are great on those. So right now, this was put in before I realized. I understand that the Campfire folks, I don't think, have their leap.fi.edu logins yet, and that is, I apologize for that. I have spoken to Leap support about it already like a week ago. Those I'm hoping will be to you guys by the end of the week. If not, you know, I'll keep contacting them. You'll get them soon, I promise. And after you're able to log on, you'll want to check your spam folder for the email, and I'll of course keep you updated on that. But after you're able to log on, all of the resources you need will be in your curriculum guide and on the educator tab of the Leap into Science website. That's where you'll find links to the connectory and to your workshop reports. If you have any concerns about this, if you want to check in about this, you can just email me and I'll make sure to stay on top of it if you have any problems accessing leap.fi.edu for your resources. Okay, now the connectory. This is where you're going to schedule your workshops. And the connectory is actually linked to our state profile as state leaders. So when we applied for the grant, we were given a state profile. And as you sign up, as you schedule your workshops in the connectory as Leap into Science participants, that gets linked to our state profile. So it shows that you were able to get your connectory profile set up. So this is, like I said, this is where you'll schedule all of your Leap into Science workshops beforehand, before you have them. So as soon as you know the date, try and log on to the connectory to get that set up. Now, I know we have been having some, a few people, not too many, but a few people have had some problems with the connectory, and I'm not surprised because it's a little confusing. The important thing is you have to go in order. You have to create your program first and make sure that your provider profile is complete before you can add opportunities. And I'm going to actually show you what that looks like right now. I'm going to see if I can move this over to show you the connectory website. Are you guys seeing the connectory right now? Got some nods, awesome. So what this means is when you log on, you'll get to your dashboard just like this. It'll have your name. But you won't be able to add any opportunities until you have at least one provider profile complete. I just point this out because we've had a couple of problems with this, but if you're not able to add opportunities and it's not letting you add opportunities, one thing that might be going wrong is you might either not have a provider profile down here, or it might just be incomplete. So that's one thing you might want to check. And of course, I'll say again, you know, if you have any problems at all, email me, reach out. I'm here for this. This is like, you know, I get paid to do this, so don't hesitate to reach out with any technical problems you have with the connectory or leap.fi.edu at all, because you know, it's no problem, and it's what I'm kind of here to do. It's one of my main projects that I was assigned to as a Vista. So feel free to reach out if you have any problems at all. Most importantly, the workshop reports. I say workshop reports because it is what they are referred to when you go to leap.fi.edu. They refer to your Leap into Science after school activities as workshops. This is a little confusing because I think most of us, or some of us, think of workshops as trainings. And but the workshops in LEAP lingo are the after school activities. So this workshop report is what you will fill out after you do a Leap into Science activity at your organization. And of course, this is along with the connectory. This is right here under your educator tab when you log into leap.fi.edu. And you'll just, and I'll remind you when you get around to implementing your activities, to go on here and take this quick survey. It's really fast. It's called a workshop report, but it's not super in depth. It's really just it's so that the Franklin Institute, who provided all the money for the kits that we sent out, can collect data on their activities, see how they went, and it's a part of our grant requirement as Leap into Science state leaders. So remember to fill out your workshop reports. It's really important to do this after you implement your Leap into Science activity. So really want to emphasize that. Okay, and expectations. So this is just a quick summary of what you're going to be doing looking forward. Complete a training survey after today. So I will enter that link into the chat in just a minute, so you guys can fill that out right at the end. The training survey is important, I'll point out, because I think some of our campfire folks need a training certificate to fill in hours. And your training survey is how you get that. You'll basically take the training survey and mark yes or no on the last question as to whether or not you need a certificate for this training. And that's how we'll know to send you one, because it'll lead you to another page where we'll get your information to do that. So make sure you fill out the training survey if you need a certificate for this training. Schedule your wind workshop in the connectory by next training. And if you haven't, try and schedule your light and shadow training. If you haven't already, schedule that by next training as well. Or sorry, your light and shadow activity by next training. And if, be thinking about when you want to hold your light and shadow if you haven't yet, because you have until May of 2022 to hold your 3 Leap into Science workshops. And I'll point out, these don't have to be the 3 different workshops. Like, you don't have to do 1 light and shadow, 1 wind, and 1 balance. You can do 3 light and shadow workshops if you want. You can do any combination of the 3 that you want. You just have to do 3 by that date and fill out those 3 workshop reports for the 3 that you do. And finally, complete your activity/workshop reports by this date after you do each one. This is really important because this is how we get all of our data. This is how the activities that are done for this grant are reported. So make sure that this gets filled out, and I will send an email follow-up with all of these links, clearly outline the link for the connectory, the link for the activity reports, but also they're all available on leap.fi.edu. But I'll send an email with all of those links outlined, so it's easy to follow and you guys will know where to go. And then our next 2 trainings, our balance training is going to be on Friday, January 21st at 9 a.m. That's our last training, and you'll get your last Leap into Science kit before then. And our closing session is going to be on Friday, March 18th. This is mainly going to be to talk about reporting, making sure everything is moving smoothly and getting done. If anyone needs any support for holding their Leap into Science activities, then this will be the day that we can all meet to talk about that. It's our sort of closing quarterly call check-in session. So another requirement for our grant. So we'll see you guys at both of those, hopefully. But we will have recordings available, as we always do, if you can't make it. But it's definitely preferred that you would come and show up in person, but recordings will be provided. Finally, Leap into Science Week. Thank you to those who submitted applications for National Leap into Science Week mini grants. We wanted to talk about this. You can hold activities during this week, and that's really helpful. Use your social media, as Thomas talked about. If you have any photos, positive, stories about how the activities went, share that with us so that we can share that out by Leap into Science Week, which is coming up actually pretty soon in February. So if you have any positive messages or positive experiences or photos or anything about Leap into Science, provide those to us, because we would love to use those. And of course, take advantage of social media on that week too, if you want to hold Leap into Science activities during that week. Here's all of our the Leap into Science hashtag, Franklin Institute, and National Girls Collaborative Project, also AK After School. Take advantage of all of these. We love to see all the stuff you guys are doing at your programs. Yeah, take advantage of social media. It's a powerful, mostly good tool. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let Elizabeth kind of take it away to wrap up, so we can talk more about, we're doing really good on time. We're done like a half hour early, so or with a half hour to spare at least. So yeah, Elizabeth, do you wanna kind of do the wrap up?
Questions, and also, if not a question, if you have had a chance to already hold your light and shadow workshop program event, do you have any feedback, something that worked well or didn't work that you would like to share? If you want to either put it in the chat, I'll try to read what I see from that, or if you wanted to add it. I do see someone asked about the grant results, and Matthias said that November 30th is when you will hear about it. Yeah.
I'll share.
Hi, Lauren, go for it.
Hi. So we're actually doing two. We had our first go yesterday, and then we're repeating it again to reach a different audience on Monday. So it went really well. It's the first family program that we've held in person in almost 2 years. So whoever mentioned at the beginning, yes, there was a lot of excitement to be back in person. I think everything went well. There were a few of the stations that we just left out because some of them are very similar, and we tend to get a pretty young audience. So that worked really well. The only comment I would have is for the whiteboards, to be able to cast shadows onto them, it would be great to have stands to be able to stand them up, because the parents were trying to hold the whiteboard and the flashlight, and then they have their kids, kind of grabbing everything. But that was my only slight thing. And then I know this is probably like a Leap into Science thing. It's fabulous that the cards have English and Spanish, but our community, it would be even more fabulous if it had English and Tagalog. And so I don't know if they have other languages available, but in Cordova, at least, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, they don't. And I kind of, Leap into Science is like they're a national program. So I kind of knew that going in, English and Spanish. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost not as helpful. I don't know, it would almost be better, I think, to just have English, just rather than introducing kind of a third language in there, if it's not a common, especially, in this community. So, but yeah, that is Leap into Science's materials, and that's what's available there. I wonder if it might be, I'm glad you said that though, because it might be worth bringing up that, if that it is introducing kind of a third language, whether or not it might be helpful to just have the options of having more languages, or just having an English, or just having a more wide variety rather than just English and Spanish. That's definitely something I can pass on, because it would be really useful for because there's a lot of different languages that would be useful to have on those cards. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And my only suggestion for Lauren or anyone, because we have our light and shadow scheduled, so that was a really good tip about the whiteboards, and we might try, now that I'm thinking about it, actually taping them to a bookend and using the bookend as a stand, since as a library we have millions of those lying around.
Yeah, that's a perfect solution, and we're gonna try that for Monday as well.
Yeah,
that's good. That's an awesome idea.
Anyone else with questions or experiences? Jerry did ask, the Friday meeting is or the January meeting is a Friday. Friday, January 21st at 9 a.m.
If I could just ask
I
just had a quick question again about the surveys for this training and getting certificates for the campfire folks, because you said we don't have access to the email to be able to get any of that right now. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be sent to like the main person who signed us up through our office, and then our office will most likely just shoot those out to us. I think you are muted. I can't hear anything.
Sorry, I totally muted myself. I think I just muted myself before instead of unmuting. Anyway, thank you. So yeah, those will go to each individual person, because if your email was provided, the idea was that you should have the ability to log in. So they will send you directly a welcome email as well as login information, and you'll have to go in and reset your password right away. So each individual person will receive that whose email was provided. And yeah, for Campfire, it's if I have your email and if you received an invite or a reminder email, then that means I sent your email on to leap.fi.edu to get a login. So all of you will receive your own email with your login information for that.
Lily, this is Adrian. I don't know if I have gotten an email from LEAP either.
Okay, so for that, I mean, the first thing I would recommend is searching through your spam, because they do end up in spam sometimes. If you've already done that, sorry. I think the best thing for me to do would be to just double check our profile and see if they confirm that they sent you an email, because what I remember seeing was that they had said that they had at least told us that they sent everyone an email. So if we do have that confirmation, I will contact them and let them know that you didn't receive it and that something went wrong. Did anyone also have that problem of not yet having their Leap into Science login and it wasn't in their spam?
So I'm going to say, Lily, when I initially did it, it was not in my spam. I could not find it. I just went to leap.fi.edu and I hit lost password, and they sent me a reset email, and then I was able to get in.
Okay. So maybe I can send out an email with kind of maybe in my follow-up email, I can send out those steps, just so if anyone didn't receive an email, they can at least try that out to just say forgot password and see if their email is in there. Because that would be an easy way to just I don't know, avoid going through everything with Leap support.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay, I will definitely do that, just to make sure everyone tries that out. And I'll also, I'll double check with Leap support as well, to make sure. Thank you for letting me know about that. Okay, so the Wind Training survey link is in the chat. If you guys want to click on that and yeah, make sure you do that. I mean, we want everyone to do it. Please fill out our survey. It's helpful to us. And this is for us. It's not for Leap support. It's our Survey Monkey, but it is also the way that we can get you your training certificates. Make sure you do that.
Lily, I'm not seeing it in the chat. Can you resend it?
Oh, I just sent a direct message to someone. Sorry. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here, Elizabeth. Okay, I need to send it to everyone. Here we go. One more time. Okay, in the chat. Does everyone see it? Oh, thank you. Okay. Any other questions or feedback? It looks like. Thank you. Okay, awesome. So glad to have you guys here. Thank you so much for coming and for participating so much. It's nice to hear from you guys about how it's going and what can be done better and what needs to be done to improve. So it's awesome. So yeah, do that in the survey as well. Like I said, we really appreciate it. And with that, I mean, unless Elizabeth, you have anything to add?
No,
Okay.
I'm happy to give people about
Yeah.
23 minutes of their day back.
Yeah, me too. Okay, awesome. Okay, great, awesome. Thank you guys so much. We will see you. Well, I'll be, we'll both be in touch. We'll see you on January 21st, the next training. So have a great day, guys. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, guys.